So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. And I'm here with Rabbi Chanoch Kesselman. I hope I've pronounced that correctly.
Chanoch.
Chanoch.
It's all right. It's all right. I've been called a lot worse.
So I'm here with Rabbi Chanoch Kesselman, who is related to the kosher organizations in the UK, I think. So I'll ask him to introduce himself first. So Chanoch, if you can introduce yourself first with your name as well, so I can get the correct pronunciation, and your title in relation to kosher.
Right, okay. My name is Chanoch Kesselman. I've been involved in kosher meat production for the past, I would say, 50 years.
50 years, wow.
Yeah. So I've got a little bit of experience in it. There are people who've been in it longer, but that's as much as I can manage at the moment.
Thank you.
Inshallah.
And in terms of kosher organizations in the UK, are there many organizations, or is there one organization?
No, there are about 3 organizations that certify the kosher slaughter of animals. Some are stricter than others. Some will accept certain leniencies and others won't. The organization I belong to is of the stricter organization.
Similar to the Halal organization that I'm connected to, which is the Halal Monitoring Committee, HMC, were regarded as one of the most stricter organizations within the UK.
I know, and I've had dealings with the Halal Monitoring is it committee?
Yes, that's right, HMC.
Yes. Are they based in Leicester?
That's right.
Yes. Over many years. And I've always respected their stance because they are not prepared to compromise on their religious values. And that is something which I find very, very comforting. When I say the stricter, the kosher principles of all the 3 different organizations is that none of them, without exception, except stunning before the Shochet, that's the kosher slaughter. They insist that the animal must be alive and healthy before the kosher slaughtering process, the Shochet, can be practiced on them, on the animals. The Shochet, that is the religious man who actually slaughters the animal, he has to be trained for a number of years, not only in the method of slaughter, but also in examining the animal post-slaughter. So there has to be no defect found in the animal, in the internal organs, especially the lungs. And if everything is found to be okay, and the slaughter was carried out properly, then the animal is passed as kosher.
So when you say the animal was slaughtered properly, what does that involve?
Right. The knife that is used is called a chalaf. It is a straight-bladed knife. It is not curved and it is not pointed. And it has to incise the trachea, esophagus, carotid arteries, and jugular veins. It has to be a swift incision, and there are 5 points which must be adhered to in the process of the act of slaughtering the animal. For instance, there must be no delay or pausing. The movement has to be continuous. You can't sort of start a cut and then stop and then carry on. It has to be a continuous movement.
Yeah.
There must be no pressing. So it has to be carried out with the forward and backward movement of the knife. It can't be pressed, for instance, as one would say, cut a piece of cake, pressing down. That is not acceptable. It must be made at the right place in the neck. The incision has to be in the right place.
Yeah.
In the windpipe. The khalif, that is the instrument that is used, it must not be pointed, so there should be no chance of digging or stabbing. And the knife has to be uncovered all the time. It can't be buried or covered by the fur or feathers of the animal or the skin of the animal. And there must be no tearing of the organs. If there's a nick in the knife, which has to be examined, it has to be absolutely completely smooth. There mustn't be the smallest nick, because that would cause tearing, however slight, and that would disqualify the animal from being kosher. It doesn't mean to say that according to the health authorities that animal is unfit, but it has not passed the requirements for it to be kosher. And
I've seen these knives, and they are the sharpest blades that I see in the industry anywhere.
It's an exquisite sharpness.
Yes.
It's absolutely razor sharp.
Yeah.
And the Shochet, who performs the act of shita, he has to check the blade on three sides. I don't know if you can. Let's say this is a pen. Yes. Let's say it's the blade. So with his fingernail, he has to check the front of the blade.
Yeah.
And the two sides.
Yeah.
Runs his finger across, and it has to be absolutely smooth. Wow. If there's any defect in that knife or any tiny little notch, he mustn't use it.
Wow.
And that has to be examined before the slaughter and afterwards. Before, obviously, to see that it's going to be the correct blade has to be used. And after the slaughter of the animal, he has to check it to make sure that the act of slaughter that he's just performed didn't cause any notch or disqualification of the knife. It has to be the shritter, the incision has to be of such that it does not reach down to the vertebrae.
Yes.
Because that would invalidate the knife.
Yeah.
So it has to just cut the trachea, the esophagus, and the carotid arteries and the two veins.
There's one area that is quite contentious within our Muslim community, because we are allowed to eat kosher, or we are allowed to eat the slaughter of a Christian and a Jew, according to chapter 5, verse number 5 within the Quran. But there's one bone of contention around whether the Jewish rabbi in the Shochet who does this slaughter, whether he reads God's name on every single animal or at the beginning of slaughter, do they read it at all? What is the ruling within kosher?
Right. Okay. Well, before the shochet starts to his the session of shchita, or slaughtering the animal, he pronounces a benediction, a blessing, where he accepts that God is the King of the universe, who has given us the commandment to slaughter the animal in the way prescribed by Jewish law, and he does invoke the name of God, but it's not necessary for him to do it for each and every animal. So let's say he's in an abattoir where the quota for the day is, let's say, 20 cattle or 20 lambs. So he makes the bracha, the benediction, the blessing at the start, and provided there's been no interruption in that session, that benediction is good for all the amount that he's going to slaughter. If that session stops, for example, let's say he stops for lunch and another shochet comes, he makes another blessing, but it's not made on each and every one. I know in Islam, the tasmiyah, I think that's what it's called.
That's right.
Has to be, yeah, it has to be for every single animal.
Yes.
But it's not necessary in Jewish law. Provided he said the blessing at the beginning, that suffices for the number of animals that is going to be slaughtered.
So it's per session.
Per session. Exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And in Israel, in America, in other countries, is kosher exactly the same that is done here?
Yes, it's pretty much the same. In England, for instance, they passed a law in 1995 that what happened was the animal was turned upside down in dorsal recumbency, so the incision was affected from up to down.
Yes.
From above, the animal was below, and the traefer was done from above.
Yes.
But the welfare people in this country weren't happy with the fact that the animal was turned on its back. It actually didn't cause any problem to the animal, but the welfare people just didn't like it.
Yes.
And it was an attempt to stop shchita altogether.
Oh wow.
Yes,
that's for the cow. Was that for the cow?
Pardon?
Are we talking about the cow there, the big animals?
Yes, yeah. Yes. Chickens are handheld.
Handled, okay.
So that's not a problem. Lamb is put into a V restrainer. Yeah. So that also wasn't a big problem. Yeah. But large cattle, they didn't want it to be turned upside down. It was put into a pen called the Weinberg pen.
Yes.
Where the animal went into this pen. It was a box. They pulled the lever, and the animal was turned upside down. They didn't like it.
Okay.
For reasons I don't think, my personal view is, I don't think it was for welfare considerations, because the RSPCA in the 1950s insisted that that was the only way that you could carry out shchita. Before that, they used to cast the animal by tying ropes around its feet, and they and pull a rope, and the animal would be cast on its side. The welfare people didn't like that.
Yes.
And there was a chap called Weinberg who developed this Weinberg pen, this rotating pen.
Yes.
And the RSPCA thought, oh, this is wonderful. And they made that the law that everybody has to use that. Well, then, come in the 1990s, the Farm Animal Welfare Council made a report on the welfare of animals at slaughter.
Yes.
And yes, and they weren't happy with this one. They wanted the upright pen, where the animal goes in to a restraint on its 4 feet, and then there's a chin lift which lifts up the neck of the animal, and the shochet affects the incision from from below.
Yes.
So it wasn't really, in my opinion, it wasn't really, the main reason was not in the interest of animal welfare. The main thing was that they didn't like the Jewish method of slaughter.
Yes.
Stemming from the fact that they didn't like Jews.
Okay.
Now, I know this is a contentious issue.
Yeah.
But I have spoken over 50 years to people involved in animal welfare. Some are genuinely interested in the welfare of animals, and some just use it as an excuse to restrict the Jewish practice of shchita. And by and large, I have found that once you get into discussion with these animal welfare people, you can see their antipathy to the Jewish method. It comes out of the woodwork. Now, a lot of people disagree with me. Even Jews go, "Oh no, you're paranoid, and you mustn't say that." And it does. But 50 years' experience has shown me that is in fact the case.
Sometimes it's
because they, you see, once the non-kosher slaughter industry has introduced stunning, which we do not do at all at any stage. We don't have any stunning at all, and I believe that your organization
does not have stunning as well. That's right.
No, they don't. You have what you call the prophetic method.
That's right.
I think that's what you call it. Yeah, and that is where there's no stunning is allowed. That makes the meat haram, and
again, it's contentious within our Muslim jurists whether it makes it haram or whether it makes it makruh, which is detestable, and so it just depends. As long as the animal is alive, I don't think anyone can say that the animal is haram, but it is better to do it without stunning.
Well, I understand. You see, the reason why we cannot accept stunning is because it changes the physiology of the animal. That once it's stunned, you cannot be certain that there's been no internal damage that has taken place. And it has to be certain that the animal is viable, alive and healthy at the time of the slaughter. Stunning takes away that certainty.
Certainty, yes.
And it causes injuries to the animal. May not be seen, they could be internal injuries, depending on the method of stunning, whether it's by captive bolt, which makes a hole in the head, or by electronarcosis, using electrodes on the head, can damage the brain. So we're not allowed to stun in any shape or form, either before or after the slaughter. It has to be seen that the animal was slaughtered by the kosher method of shchita, as commanded by God to Moses when he gave the Torah. I think in your usage you call it Torah. So it has to be seen to be slaughtered by shchita, not by any other method, or in conjunction with any other method.
Thank you. The main thing, I just want the viewers to understand how the kosher method is done. I think you've explained that for us very, very clearly. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we finish?
Well, yeah, Yunus, there is so much. I mean, there's so many details. It's so involved. What I've just said is a very, very brief description.
And I know that you have laws about checking the animal after the slaughter, etc. And I didn't want to go into that because I think for Muslims who might be thinking of eating kosher. I just wanted them to see and hear how the method of slaughter is done, and then for them to decide whether they want to continue eating slaughter,
right, exactly.
kosher.
And of course, the type of animal is also important.
Yes, that's
For
right.
instance, we're not allowed to eat pig, as you say,
Yes.
pork. That's the same as in Islam.
Yes.
It's you can't have that. We can't eat things like horses. Or,
within our tradition, there's a difference of opinion in horses.
Yes, I think you can eat camels. Can you? I know. In Saudi Arabia, it's a great delicacy there.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think one of the main differences between kosher and halal is that if the shchita has not been done according to the strict rules, the whole animal is disqualified. So there's no part of the animal which is okay to eat, but not others. Once the shchita is kosher, then the whole animal is permitted, apart from certain fats and certain tendons in the animal, which are forbidden from eating, like blood vessels. The blood has to be drained out.
Yes.
And I think that's the same in Islam.
In Islam as well, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in Islam, you can eat all the animal, including the hindquarters. In kosher, we don't eat the hindquarter.
Okay.
Only the forequarter.
Right.
And that's basically it, other than to say that the Shochet who affects the slaughter has been trained for many years in both the actual method of slaughter and in examining the animal afterwards to see that everything was done properly.
Yeah.
And it means...
How many years is that training?
Sorry, how many years is
training
for? It's at least 5 years.
Wow.
At least 5 years.
And does that include his rabbinical training as well?
Yes, because he has to be fluent in all the laws of the Torah, not just in the method of slaughter, but in other parts.
Would I be correct to say he would be a rabbi?
He would be a rabbi. He may not be a communal rabbi serving in the synagogue as a communal rabbi, but he does have the ordination.
He would be trained as much as a rabbi.
Of a rabbi, that's right, yes. And he's competent to answer questions concerning kosher, concerning shchita. Yes.
And just to get the terminology right, so kosher is similar to halal?
Kosher actually means fit. Or proper. And it's used not only for methods of slaughter, but also for Jewish appurtenances. For instance, the scroll of the law, it has to be kosher, means it has to be written correctly. There can't be any spelling mistakes in it.
Yes.
Or the actual writing has to be correct, otherwise it's not kosher. So kosher is a generic term meaning fit and proper.
Not too dissimilar to halal. Halal means permissible, and we use halal. Yeah.
Right.
Halal is used in lots of things. You can have halal transactions, halal clothes.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a generic term.
Well, this is similar with kosher. Clothes also have to be kosher.
Yes.
And business dealings have to be kosher.
Yeah, business is the same here. Halal.
Halal. Yeah, right. In fact, the word kosher is now used in colloquial talk
Yes, absolutely.
Even if it's nothing to do with Jews,
Yes.
you know, somebody might say, "Oh, I've got some things to tell you. It's all kosher."
Yeah.
It's, all,
It's like our conversation today is kosher.
yes, yes, it's kosher. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's kosher, and then you've got the shochet or
The Shochet, he's the person who carries out the slaughter of the animals.
yeah.
Yes.
And what's the other term you mentioned? So you've got kosher, you've got shochet, and then you've got is there any other
Well,
term?
you've got traefer, which is the
Traefer,
opposite of
which is
the
similar
opposite.
to haram.
Yes, it's the opposite of kosher.
Yeah, it's
It means
haram.
it is
Traefer.
yes. It's forbidden. Traefer actually means torn. The literal translation of traefer means it's torn. It means it was not slaughtered according to the rules of Shchita. But it's also used for generally as a generic term for things that are not kosher. The same as like, for instance, clothes, if it's not correct. Yeah.
And shechita?
Shechita is the noun of doing the slaughtering. The shochet practices shchita. If the root of the word is the same, comes from the same root. To shochet, he is the slaughterer.
And the kosher organizations, what are they known as Beth Din, or are they?
Yes, each organization has its own Beis Din. Beis Din means the house of the law, of the din. I think
The Arabic is Beit Din. Yeah, so the Arabic is Beit Din. So House of Din, Beth Din. Very good.
Yes, it's the same. It's the same. There are many similarities, just as there are many differences.
Yeah.
But the Beis Din is the one that certifies the shochet that he's qualified to carry out the shchita, and he gets his certificate of competence from the Beis Din, from the Bet Din.
Okay, excellent.
He gets a Kabbalah, which is his certificate.
And one last question is,
yes,
you mentioned that the slight differences between the three organizations, and none of them accept stunning. So what are the small differences? What is this strictest one, the least strictest one? So for us, for example, in the Halal organizations, we have those who don't accept stunning, those who accept stunning. So that would be our difference. So he doesn't accept any type of stunning, whereas before slaughter, and the other organizations, halal organizations, they will accept stunning. Some accept machine slaughter, which majority don't. So there's differences in the criteria that people are employing within the halal certification bodies.
Right. So the difference is that some Bate Din, that's the plural of Beis Din, they accept certain leniencies in the examination of the animal post-mortem. So, for instance, if there's some slight defect in the lungs, there is discussion amongst the rabbis as to whether that slight problem is enough to disqualify the animal. Some say that it doesn't disqualify the animal, but it gives it the status of a lower standard. It is not called halak, which means smooth, but it's still kosher. There are scrupulous people who won't eat that, but it's still considered to be kosher, but not of the first quality of kosher. So the different organizations have different leniencies in that. Some are stricter and some are more lenient, but all within the framework of the Torah.
Okay.
That's basically the difference between these different Bate Din.
Thank you. This is really informative. And just one question. In terms of kosher chicken, if I was to go and buy a kosher chicken, how much would it cost?
Well, it depends whether you're buying the whole chicken or whether you're buying it if it's cut into quarters or eighths or
Whole chicken.
Pardon?
Whole
chicken. Whole chickens are quite expensive these days due to the fact that the chicken feed has increased in price, transport costs. So a whole chicken might cost you about £10.
£10.
Yes, which is quite expensive compared with
with the halal, normal chickens. Absolutely.
With non-kosher. Also, again, you see, the chickens are also examined for defects.
Wow.
Yes, the lungs have to be examined. The intestines are examined to make sure there's no growth on them. It has to be seen that all the internal organs are there. For instance, if there's a liver missing or a spleen or some other part of the animal, or the lungs have got some defect, some deformity, that disqualifies it from being kosher. And because of the number of rejects, that inevitably puts the price up of the kosher ones that are available.
Wow.
Yeah. Some organizations are cheaper than others. And the shop where you buy the chicken from, well, they work within a framework of their costings, so you can get much cheaper ones. There are organizations which will subsidize the cost of a chicken for families that can't afford to say the full price.
Oh.
So they won't be deprived from eating a chicken. The value can be subsidized.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chanoch. We are coming to the end of our session today, so I just want to thank you for coming on.
It's been my pleasure.
Educating us, and hopefully this will be very useful to those who will be watching later on.
Right. I have written a book about Shochet. In fact, I've actually been working on it for a number of years because it's a never-ending process. They're always bringing new laws. I mean, the civic authorities.
Yeah. Is it published?
It's not published. It's on
website.
Yes, on the website. Yeah.
Which website is it on?
Well, it's on. There's an organisation called Shochet UK.
Which organisation? Sorry.
Shochet UK.
Shochet UK. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll have a look.
Yes, you can answer that. And of course, you've got my email. You've got my phone number.
Yeah, have your contact.
Yes, and at any time, don't hesitate. You can ask questions, and if I can't answer them, I shall put you in touch with somebody who's got more experience than 50 years.
There'll be very few. Shaykh. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure, Yunus.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
God bless.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.